Hi there, John here again. Okay, so back by popular demand, I have another kind of story for you. But just before we start the story, there's probably some vocabulary that you might not know, so I'm just going to go through some of the words that are going to be in the story just to help you along. The other thing I wanted to say about these words, or any words, new words that you come across, is I think it's a really good idea that when you see a new word, or even if you hear after, my description or definition of the word, a good thing to do is see if you can take an English to English dictionary. I always think that's better. And take a look at the word in the context of a sentence. The best dictionaries, in my opinion, is a dictionary where you can see the word and then it gives you an example of the word used in context in a sentence. So read that, and then to see if you can understand it. And then sort of the final thing you would do to really, I think, understand a word is to see if you can use that word in a sentence of your own. And I think that's really kind of the sign of, oh, okay, I really get it, I understand. Okay, so I'm going to just give you sort of my definitions of these words, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so this one, rare. A rare is something that's very sort of uncommon, something that is just not very many of them, very, very, very few of them. It's something that is rare. Often it could be like an antique, an old product or something. Insured. If something is insured, what happens? You get there's an insurance company, and you pay money to the insurance company. And if something happens to a product, for example, or something, or your house is insured, for example, then if something happens to the house, they'll give you money for it. Okay. Stockpile is just basically the supply of something that you have. Could be also in a restaurant, or just something that you have. Premium payment, that is the money that you have to pay for an insurance policy. Okay, so the amount of money that you have to pay, so the insurance company will pay you if something happens to that. To file a claim, if something does happen, for example, I'll just use the house as an example. If your house is burned and it is insured, after the house, for example, it burns, you file a claim. It's like telling the insurance company that this happened. Citing is kind of like to sort of support, give mention to, give reasons for something. Sued is when you take someone to court. There's something that they did, so you take them to court, and usually money would be exchanged depending on the outcome. Frivolous is just something that's just not serious, not necessary, not worthy, not important. A fine is something that you must pay if you do something wrong. So I don't know who drives, but if you do drive, you've probably unfortunately received like a ticket on your car because you haven't parked in the right place, or if you've done something bad, you could receive a fine. Okay, so money you have to pay. Okay, so appeal. Appeal is, and a lot of this vocabulary is it's good for things related to the law. So these words can be really great for that when you're reading in other news, in the newspaper, etc. An appeal is when you go to court, if you're not happy with the decision that the judge gives you, you can ask for an appeal. So it's like to do the trial or do that again. Insurance policy, I think we spoke about it briefly. Just the document stating the details of the agreement between you and your insurance company. To consume is to sort of finish, complete, Yeah, I think that's probably normal fashion is just an expression to do something in the normal way. Warranted is where you do something when it's something you do in it for the right reasons. So it's sort of the accepted way of doing it. Guaranteed is like kind of like a promise. Sometimes if you have you buy a product, then usually there's like a guarantee where, you know, if it breaks, that they will pay you money for it before that is finished. Arson is when it's the criminal act of setting fire to property, usually not your own. A sentence is, well, there's the English sentence, but in this story it's different. The sentence is usually after, in the context of a trial, the judge, if you've been found guilty, that means that you're found to be, that you've done something wrong. The sentence is, it could be maybe time in jail or a big, or you have to do something. So it's kind of like the punishment. Obligated is just something that you have to do. Okay, so with these words, I'm going to read a story, and it's kind of a funny story, so I hope you enjoy it. Okay, it's story time. Alright, so here's the story. A Charlotte, North Carolina man, having purchased a case of very rare, very expensive cigars, insured them against fire, among other things. Within 1 month of having smoked his entire stockpile of cigars, and without having made even his first premium payment on the policy, the man filed a claim against the insurance company. In his claim, the man stated the cigars were lost in a series of small fires. The insurance company refused to pay, citing the obvious reason that the man had consumed the cigars in a normal fashion. He smoked them. The man sued and won. In delivering the ruling, the judge, agreeing that the claim was frivolous, stated nevertheless that the man held a policy from the company in which it warranted that the cigars were insurable, and also guaranteed that it would insure against fire, without defining what it considered to be unacceptable fire, and was obligated to pay the claim. Rather than endure a lengthy and costly appeal process, the insurance company accepted the ruling and paid the man $15,000 for rare cigars he lost in the fires. However, after the man cashed the checks, received his money, he got that $15,000 and put it in the bank, the company had him arrested on 24 counts of arson. With his own insurance claim and testimony from the previous case being used against him, the man was convicted of intentionally burning his insured property, the cigars, and sentenced to 2 years in jail and fined $24,000. What a crazy story. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more fabulous videos like this about grammar and listening and all sorts of different things, go to www.ingvid.com. Oh, sorry, I totally forgot. So you can, on the site that I told you just half a second ago, www.ingvid.com, go to that site and you can also see some a quiz about this story and some of the vocabulary. Okay, so you can take a quiz.